Hey, all my fantasy football friends. Welcome to the Multiple Firsts Fantasy Dynasty channel here on YouTube. This is Tony, Stosh on the Sleeper app, coming to you with Greg. Today we're going to be breaking down the rookie wide receivers. Everyone loves these guys. It's the deepest position in the draft. How you feeling today, Greg?
Ready to break down the best position in this class and talk about some of the gems we're going to find in our rookie drafts coming up here. And man, what is it? Just a month out from these rookie drafts getting started.
Yeah, man, I circled, was it April 28th on my calendar? I'm just counting the days till the draft shows up. I cannot wait to sit and watch the NFL draft and sit on my couch and watch all those defensive linemen get drafted and hope to see a few wide receivers and quarterbacks among them. Because that's
Mm-mm-mm.
what's going to happen. And hopefully
That
we'll
will
see.
be delicious.
Hopefully we'll see a Brees Hall dropping in at the end into the Bills or something fun like that. But
I
yeah,
We'll see. I have a feeling the Bills might need a cornerback here. They look a little soft on that side to me, but we'll see.
yeah, I think they could use someone like that too. But today we're breaking down receivers, guys, and yeah, like I said, it's the deepest class. It's the deepest position in the class. There's, I don't know, 8, maybe even 10 guys who could go in the first round. Are gonna go in the first 2 rounds. Receivers are gonna be flying off the board in the draft this year. And I just wanna say that's proven. I'm not just saying that to blow smoke. I mean, when you looking back at what happened with the Vikings trading away Stephon Diggs in what was a very deep receiver class 2 years ago, or they got a first, a fifth, a sixth, and a 21 fourth for making that trade with the Bills. And I'm sure the Bills were happy to make that deal. But the Vikings were able to use one of those picks on Justin Jefferson, and they got 3 bonus picks to go along with it. And I think you're seeing this year is the Chiefs and the Packers, 2 of the smartest, most competitive, most well-run organizations in the league. They got rid of their number 1 target for a haul of draft picks, and they know that they can replace that number 1 guy in this year's draft among these receivers. So the best teams in the league are saying that this is a great receiver class. So let's dive into it. First guy on the list, we got Drake London, the 6'4", 220-pound man from USC. What do you like about Drake London, Greg?
He's big. He's very big and moves well for his size. So he ran just under a 4.55 at the combine at 6'4", 220 pounds with long arms, good jumping ability. He was on the basketball team at USC. So this is a guy who is very athletic for that, small forward frame wide receiver. 4.53, fast for size, but obviously not a burner. Um, so the questions become: is he a stud, or is he like a plus possession guy? But I think the floor is safe, and the ceiling is at least possible with this guy.
Yeah, he's going to get such good draft capital. He very well could be the first guy off the board. I mean, any of these first 5 or 6 guys we're going to talk about could be the first receiver taken. But whoever brings this guy in is going to use the crap out of him. I mean, he's going to get a lot of targets his rookie season, no matter where he lands. And yeah, we'll know what we have in Drake London at the NFL level pretty quickly. And I think it's going to be very good. I'm excited for London. I plan on having a lot of him. One of the big points on him that separates him from the rest of the class is he is very young. When he gets his name called on draft day, he's going to be a 20-year-old man. He will not even be able to go out and get a drink at the bar after the draft. He doesn't turn 21 until July. So, you're getting a player who could be a contributor to your fantasy team for, 12 years potentially. I mean, that's just a lot of time. But yeah, I like Drake London. I'm excited to see what happens with this guy. What's a good NFL comp for Drake in your opinion, Greg?
Well, we've got some. I've got some thoughts, but let me just jump back to
Yeah,
the age issue for a second. One of the things about a guy like this is if they break out in year 1 or year 2 and have a huge season, then all of a sudden you're sitting on a huge asset that is 23, and that's going to bring in a lot more trade value than if you draft a 23-year-old and then in year, when they're 25, they're breaking out. That'll still bring you a lot of value back, but people drool over those under 25, already a star kind of players. So there's some extra upside when you're extra young, in addition to extra potential for development. So
Yeah, it's like a good comparison for that argument would be like, look at Justin Jefferson versus Terry McLaurin. I mean, they both made a lot of noise early in their career, but McLaurin's just way older, and everything happened for McLaurin at an older age, even though it was similar number of years pro. And JJ is worth a lot more than McLaurin is, and the age is a big reason for that.
Absolutely. So Drake London, if you look at his testing comps, his best comps among measurables include some guys who were really good in this league. Some guys like T. Higgins, Mike Williams, and Michael Pittman. On the other hand, we got Brian Edwards, Mac Holland, Corey Davis. So there are some real busts with this profile too. So we have to be at least a little bit careful about just looking at the measurables. But one of the things you'll notice there is that most of the guys who didn't perform with this profile either didn't get big draft capital or they came from small programs. Whereas you're not projecting a lot with Drake London. He was a dominant player at a major conference school. So I am more in than out, but I do think there are some questions about how his game translates, in part because he's a unique athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with London, at the very least, you're going to get a lot of touchdowns out of him. I mean, even if he doesn't develop into this elite 120 plus target guy, like he's at the very least going to be a red zone target for his team, given his size and his leaping ability. So even if he goes all the way down to his floor, if he doesn't pop for you, you're still going to have at least a startable fantasy asset for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with Drake
Excellent.
London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably the next guy on the general consensus list is Garrett Wilson, right? Out of Ohio State University. Garrett's a 6 foot tall, 185 pound receiver. Ran a 4.38 at the combine.
Zooming.
Absolutely, man. That combine track was something. A little thin, great routes, good hands. Very quick in addition to being fast. Is he a true number one, or is he more of a high quality complementary piece where you need a big alpha on the other side and then you're hitting on all cylinders? What do you think?
I think Garrett Wilson has the ability to be a number one receiver in the league. He just separates and he explodes. He's got great body control. That's a big note with him. That Juju Smith-Schuster, that, I don't know, Odell kind of caliber, just being able to make an acrobatic catch. And that's what you want to see out of your number one. He separates, great hands. He's got the pedigree coming from Ohio State. Wilson could be the number one for your team. He could also be a premium number two for your team. I really like Garrett Wilson a lot. I don't think there's anything bad to really say about him other than he might be a little undersized. Like, that's about it.
Yep.
He could be a volume hog potentially. He could play in the slot. He can play outside. With the speed, you could see him get some rushing attempts, like end arounds, things like that. The team is going to want to get the ball in Garrett Wilson's hands. 10 times a game, maybe.
Yeah. If I had to look at some drawbacks here, he's a little undersized, as you mentioned, and you could imagine him struggling a little bit against press coverage at the next level. And at Ohio State, he was not getting coverage rolled his way. That is a team that is loaded with pass catching options. And so it has been as easy as it's going to be for him. So his tape, there's a lot of tape of him getting off man coverage from a guy who's totally overmatched. Um, and there's that hole in his game. I will say that hole in his prospect profile is what I'll say.
Yeah, I'm hoping that his speed it will buy him a lot of space. The NFL, at least the average defensive back that's lined up on him in man coverage, they have to respect that speed. They have to give him a little more space. So, you could be looking at some good volume for Garrett. A PPR machine right off the rip. Given his speed, and if that translates to the NFL.
I think he's a little Steve Smithish, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's a great comp for him. And that also really is a testament to the ceiling you could have. Steve Smith was an incredible receiver for a long time.
Hall of Fame, absolutely,
Yeah,
gold jacket.
yeah, and Wilson could be that. He could be the first receiver taken off the board. Where do you think he within the NFL draft? Around what range do you think he gets drafted?
I think he'll be the top receiver off the board. To
Top
the Jets,
10, you think? Yeah.
At 10. The Jets are at 10, I believe, right? Yeah, the Jets at 10. They have 2 top 10 picks, and I do think they will address the receiver position, probably with one of them. I mean, they could. They also have 2 high seconds and could address it once or twice there too. But I think Garrett Wilson to the Jets is where I'd pencil this in.
Yeah, if he doesn't go there, also he's not going to fall much further.
No.
I would see the absolute floor is like the Saints at 18. They wouldn't let Garrett Wilson slide by them, I imagine. So,
No.
You're looking at a high capital player, someone I would be very comfortable using a higher rookie superflex first round pick on. I would be fine spending my 107 rookie on Garrett Wilson in New Orleans. That would be just fine with me.
I can imagine one of these guys in Houston with the Deshaun Watson pick as well. They could use somebody opposite Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, that 13 slot that Houston picked up. Yeah, I think I would comfortably pencil in one of these receivers into that slot. They need someone. Nico Collins isn't. I like him. I like talent profile. I'm excited for that player, but he's not this dominant alpha. They need to get another guy in there. And Cooks could be traded. He's been linked to a lot of trades right now, and in the rumor mill. But yeah, next guy on the list here is a guy me and Greg both just love, and I think he projects as the most talented receiver among this class, and that's Alabama's Jameson Williams. He stands 6'1.5", 180 pounds. He might be the fastest guy among these burners. Unfortunately, he suffered an ACL tear in the national championship game, so he's probably not going to be ready for the start of the NFL season, and that presents an interesting wrinkle both for the NFL draft and for our rookie drafts. Do you take a lesser talent than Jameson Williams because you want someone who's going to be available for you in the beginning of the season? But that's something you're going to have to ask yourself, I think.
Yeah. So I think he is currently number 1 on my draft board because I think he has the best ceiling and big talent, and but I don't imagine he's going to get to draft day as number 1 on my draft board to rookie draft day, because I think in the NFL draft he will slide a little bit because of the injury. And because the injury makes him a little risky, and he is rail thin. Also there's a little question. He transferred to Alabama from Ohio State, right?
Yep.
So, in other words, he wasn't getting on the field next to Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who we're about to talk about. So there are some questions around him, and given that they can't, that he couldn't test and he won't be ready, and if he's not ready for the beginning of the season, you're probably going to have a lost rookie season, right? Because he's not going to be doing all those things rookies need to do to get ready. He's going to be rehabbing.
Yeah.
So, if he got the top draft capital, or if he got top 12, top 14 draft capital, I'd probably make him my 101. But I do think he'll fall into the 20s, and he won't be my number 1 going into draft day. That's my prediction. He's a risky guy. I think the ceiling is Tyree Kill. What do you think?
Absolutely. He's got that kind of upside. This guy is I can't stress his speed enough. He's the fastest guy in this class, at least on the football field. I mean, from their tape, it suggests that Jameson is the fastest guy. He plays very strong, and yeah, with JMO, I plan on getting him a lot in the late first round as much as I can. He's very much a luxury pick. Like if you're a better team that made the playoffs, you'd probably have a nice deep receiving core, and you could take someone like Williams, throw him in your IR for the first part of the season, or maybe the whole season, and
Yep.
be fine. And then have that egg that could hatch into an all-star for you and take your team to the next level. Yeah, it's a. And another thing, like he might not be ready for the start of the season, certainly, and maybe he doesn't come off the PUP till week 4, and then it takes another like 4,
right?
yeah,
The PUP has to be 6.
Okay, so 6, and then maybe it takes him another 4 weeks to get integrated into the offense. But then all of a sudden, week 12, he's starting for whatever his team is and has a big role. Okay, well, that's when the fantasy playoffs are about to start. And we saw some rookies like Amon Ra, like Jamar Chase, just really hit their stride at the end of the season. It all started clicking, and they were winning people playoff matchups. And that might be Jameson Williams this upcoming season, where he just was nothing early and then was deciding the champion of your league by the end of the year. I mean, that might be the player you're getting here.
So, I don't agree with that.
You don't think so? Okay.
I think when a rookie misses all of training camp with an injury, you have to count on a lost season.
Sure, that's fair.
So I think you are getting Jameson Williams because you think next year in year 2, hopefully he does all his off-field work, he gets back, he gets some snaps in, and hopefully he gets a full year of development by the time the next offseason and he goes into year 2. And in year 2, he's the best guy in this class. I think that's what you're betting on.
Yeah.
I really do think you are likely to see a lost season for Jameson Williams.
Yeah, and even with that in mind, he's still worth a late first round rookie pick. Even if you told me this guy
100%.
was not going to play, for sure, 100% not going to play his rookie year, I would still be perfectly willing to spend my 111 on him, or my 112 on him. Just because of what he presents, the talent he presents.
100%. I would just go in with eyes open. That's my view of that. Is eyes open about what that injury that late in the year is likely to mean for this year's productivity for a rookie. That's my take.
Yeah.
All right. The next guy on this tier is Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson's Ohio State running buddy. 6 foot, half an inch, 185, ran 4.39. Those are almost identical numbers to Garrett Wilson's. Maybe better in the slot, according to some people, according to some analysts. Great route running, some tendency to for concentration drops. Played with a lot of weapons, like we were saying with Garrett Wilson. Also true of Jameson Williams in Alabama, right? So is he a true number 1 or a complimentary guy? He reminds me a lot of Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I like that comp a lot. I think he projects as a slot receiver for me in the next level. The team that drafts him will probably be putting him in there. Not that he can't play on the outside, but he's a. I like Olave as a complementary piece to your already elite receiver, so like the Bills come to mind, but he probably doesn't land there because they already have a Crowder. But like if you have someone like a Diggs, and then you can drop in an Olave to play off that, and that Olave is going to always be working in the slot from single coverage, like that's scary. That's potent at the NFL level in terms of production.
Packers.
Yeah,
that's a place that makes sense. A lot of sense to me.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you could see him drop in there. The Packers, a team like the Chiefs, who have always valued speed, and they lost their fastest weapon. Like I could totally see Olave fall into the Chiefs. Well, he might not fall to the board to them, but if he's on the board,
they have 2 first. They could move on up. Yeah,
they could. They totally could.
Move on up. Get trade your 2 firsts for a first and a second, higher first and a second.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get the guy you want and still have an extra second. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I do think he will probably start. I mean, like right away in 2 wide receiver sets, but I think he's better in the slot. There is a chance he struggles with, again, press coverage. He's little. He's not tiny, but yeah, he's little. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you're looking at either of these Ohio State receivers, Olave or Wilson, I mean, you're looking at super pro-ready guys. Like almost the opposite of what we said about Williams, where you're going to miss it sometime.
Yes.
Like the team that drafts Wilson or Olave is probably going to have them as their starting receiver week 1.
Yes.
You know, it's
Yes.
if you're trying to find a rookie to help you win games early in your fantasy season, I would grab one of these Ohio State guys because
Yes.
they should produce fantasy points right off the rip, which is great.
And if you're also looking for, I think, safe value,
Mm-hmm.
it is very hard for me to see these 2 guys not catching many hundreds of passes in the league over the course of their career. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
It's a lot. The path for Jameson Williams or some of these other guys to bust, because guys bust, right? Guys bust in ways that very much surprise us.
Yes, they do.
The path for Jameson Williams to bust is easier for me to see than the path for either of these Ohio State guys.
Yeah, Olave may never break into the top 4 rounds of your startup draft, you know, in terms of a full startup draft. But he also may never fall out of the first 8 rounds, you know, at least for the first 7, 8 years of his career. He could just live right in there, be a nice wide receiver 2 with weekly upside. That's what you're looking at with him.
Yep.
But,
absolutely.
Next guy on our list is a man who, even if you haven't heard that much about these receivers, you probably have heard this guy's name, Trey Lon Burks from Arkansas. The 6'2", 225-pound freak of a man. Yeah, talk to me about Trey Lon Burks, Greg.
So everybody is comping him to Deebo Samuel. He is outstanding after the catch. He is a take it to the house guy. 4.55 disappointed some people, but the athletic profile for his size, 6'2", 225, is crazy. Some comps to Laviska Shenault with some of that hybrid role. Very new NFL kind of wide receiver.
Oh, yeah.
Does not win routes. Does not create separation. That is the thing you worry about with him. Outstanding after the catch, great hands, but does not get himself open. He requires manufactured touches more than the other top wide receivers in this class, right? And sometimes that works, and sometimes that doesn't. So that's who you're looking at with Trey Lon Burks, I think.
Yeah, of these top 5 guys, I think he's going to be the most landing spot dependent. And with that in mind, like a system I would like to see him drop into is the Eagles. And I know people who love Burks may hate hearing that because they don't pass the ball that much. But like when you look at what the Eagles do, you know, when you have a Smith who is a do-it-all player, you have a Goddard who's just this monster freak guy. You have all the dimensions that Hurts brings, all the dimensions that a Sanders and Gainwell bring out of the backfield. If you drop in a Trey Lon Burks, who is basically Debo, basically Cordell Patterson, a big receiver who can line up anywhere, like the headaches that whole offense would present with the quality of their offensive line to a defensive coordinator would just be a nightmare. Like imagine trying to stop that unit if Trey Lon Burks landed on the Eagles. I don't know how you would do that. Yeah.
Well, that's a great fit because Jalen Hurts needs a manufactured offense too.
Yes. So you'd have the matchups. Like you'd have all these matchup players, these Goddard, this Burks. Sanders could be a matchup guy when he's lined up in the backfield. I think he's got great talent. Smith is a matchup guy. Like all these matchups all over the place that there's always going to be something to exploit. From the offensive side.
Yep. But I don't know that would be great for Trey Lon Burks' fantasy value.
No, it wouldn't. Yeah.
Right. So
what's the best landing spot for Burks in your opinion? Sorry to cut you off there. Like where would he land and you'd be like, yeah, I love that. And for fantasy, it's gonna be great. Like
Miami.
Okay.
But no, that's all blocked up now.
Yeah, that's tough too.
But I was like, they use Debo, right? Right, like McDaniel comes from that tree.
Pittsburgh, maybe they don't go quarterback and they take him at 20.
I don't like their scheme for a player like this at all.
Sure, that's fair.
As you might be hearing, I'm not the highest on Trey Lon Burks. I know I'm lower than most people on Trey Lon Burks, just because guys who don't create separation worry me. That all of a sudden at the next level, if you can't just beat your guy on a route consistently, like a number one receiver, there's going to be there is potentially a ceiling on what you can do, and you may even find yourself out of a job the way Cordero Patterson did at some point, or like the way Laviska Shenault is having a difficult time finding somebody to use him right. That's what worries me with Trey Lon Burks. So like who would I like to see him with? New England.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the answer. Like Bill Belichick, whatever they're going to do. Although, gosh, I don't really love the.
What about Tennessee at 26? They love their big body players. That'd be maybe.
No, that's just a meat and potatoes offense. I really want him in a Minnesota, right? Like the new Rams North kind of thing,
yeah.
Right? Like that's okay. That is an offense I would like to see him in. Minnesota. They can start phasing Adam Thielen out. He can come in and be a gadget guy in this in 3 wide receiver sets for a year. Adam Thielen's got to go away soon. He never has to be the number one, so you can go manufacture some touches for him. Wide receiver screens and end arounds and all of that stuff. There's a lot of that in the McVay system, right? Like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and everybody are getting all these end arounds, like that kind of work for him. That I think that's a landing spot I like now.
Yeah, I could see that. That could be good. I like that. You're looking at a boomer bust there. I mean, I think like you high upside, I guess is what I'm trying to say, but also very low floor potentially with Trey Lon Burks.
Very high upside.
Yeah.
I imagine I'll get little of him. He will definitely be behind these guys for me. Where is he for you?
I have Burks right now as my number 3 wide receiver behind JMO and London. So
okay,
and we'll see. In our rankings, guys, we have me and Greg each have our own individual rankings of the top, 12, 15 guys. They're all written in pencil right now. The landing spots, wide receiver is probably the most landing spot dependent position. I mean, except for maybe QB. But like, I like to think running back is pretty much immune to landing spot. I mean, if you draft one of these tailbacks, you're going to use them, But these receivers, it depends what's happening in that system and who the other players are. Like, that's going to really impact their success or failure in the league.
And draft capital certainly matters.
Absolutely.
Quite a lot.
Yes.
Right? How many? Yes. So now that we've looked at the consensus top 5 guys, who's your number 1, Tony?
My number 1 receiver is Jameson Williams. I'm going to choose to not even really worry about the injury. I have multiple first-round picks in most of my leagues. Multiple first. That's the channel, baby. But with that in mind, I will get an impact player, and I am in position in almost every team I have to wait on JMO, and I'm going to be willing to do that. And if he gets a great landing spot, if the Chargers were to take him or something, I would be even more willing to wait on Jameson Williams. The talent's worth it, in my mind. But I got Jameson, I got London, I got Burks, and then I got the Ohio State guys, Olave, then Wilson. But they're close. It could be A or B there. With your 5.
I've got Jameson Williams number 1 as well. Although, as I said, once the draft capital gets added in, I bet I won't. And then I've got the Ohio State guys, Wilson and Olave. And then I've got Drake London, and then I've got Burks 6th.
Ooh.
I'm a Burks skeptic, so I don't imagine I'll end up with a lot of him.
So who do you have at 5 then, if not Trey Lon Burks?
Well, I have George Pickens of Georgia. I think this is a guy who I'm very excited to get a bunch of shares of at the end of rookie first rounds. We're talking about a guy who comes in at 6'3" and a quarter and runs under a 4.5. That's a 4.47. He missed most of this season with an injury. Came back late in the season for the national championship game and had an explosive game. He is a big play waiting to happen all the time. He has good hands. he is a little bit raw in his route skills, but I just imagine I'm going to get all kinds of shares of him, and he reminds me a lot of CD Lamb.
Yeah, I think that's a good comp. I definitely feel getting a lot of Pickens. I plan on having a lot of Pickens as well. When you have those late first round picks, those first rounders that were from a playoff team, it's Pickens. That's someone where you're going to get a guy later like that, like a Waddle that you got at the end of the first, and then all of a sudden he's leapfrogged a lot of the dudes in front of him a year later. I think that's what Pickens is.
Yeah, and in terms of the NFL draft, I don't think he will end up going in the first round. I could be wrong. He could end up, he could end up going very late in the first round to Green Bay or Kansas City, and all of a sudden he's going 105. But I actually think he will slide into the second round because of some of the injury concerns. He didn't run. He just came back for the national championship game, so he didn't run and test the same way everybody else did. I think that may cause him to slide a little bit. He's a raw player. He didn't put up any tape this year, right? So I think some NFL team is going to get a value on him in the middle of the second round.
Yeah.
And I'm going to want him on my team in the end of the first round.
Yeah, the Colts had that single second round pick.
Yep.
I could see Pickens landing there and be very effective.
Yep.
Yeah. So would you say Pickens is like maybe your favorite? Obviously not your number one, but like your favorite prospect that you're really excited to see, or who is like your favorite prospect? I guess.
Yeah. This I would say that Malik Willis. All of the top prospects are very exciting, right? But when we talk about lower down prospects who I like maybe more than other people, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have a lot of that guy. I hope he really hits. He's going to be, I'm going to call my shot a little bit. Yeah, George Pickens is one. And then there's a running back we'll get to, who is another guy I really like, who's a little lower down. But we'll get to that in the running back show next week. How about
in a future video, sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, that's going to transition.
What about you?
Into my my personal favorite prospect, the guy I'm really just excited to see what this guy has, is Christian Watson from North Dakota State. So you're talking about a guy who's 6'4". He's 210 pounds. He ran a 4.36 40. I mean, just let those numbers sink into your brain a little bit. He might be the best athlete, all-around athlete, track and field type athlete in the class. The problem is he's from North Dakota State, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a small school. It's where Trey Lance went to school. They played together for a year. And much like how Trey Lance missed a year, so did Christian Watson. There's a whole season of his life that is left out there. They didn't play. He's very inexperienced. There's very small tape, not a lot to go off from Christian Watson. But what we saw from this freak of a man was he dominated at the Senior Bowl. He dominated at the Combine, and he's been flying up draft boards ever since. I think you could see Christian Watson go late in the first round, and I plan on having a good bit of Christian Watson. He's a guy that I'm hoping the dudes in my league are avoiding because they don't know who he is, which probably won't be the case because of how much noise he's making right now. I would love to be able to spend my 203 rookie on Christian Watson wherever he lands. And
that would be a great thing to happen. Maybe you're rooting on some of these quarterbacks to sneak into the late first round and sneak in front of him, push him down. Christian Watson is an exciting athlete, right? So in that way, he reminds me of George Pickens. I have Pickens 5, I have Burks 6, and I have Watson 7. And I have 6 guys in that top tier, ending with Burks, and I have Watson just off the shoulder. He's sexy, right? Some of the guys ahead of him are like meat and potatoes a little bit. But he's not.
I just see Chase Claypool when I watch this guy. That's what he looks like to me. It's just physically, the speed, the size, just everything. He's probably a better athlete than Claypool, which is crazy.
Javon Walker is a guy who came to my mind. When he was putting up big numbers, in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. That's a guy he has very similar combine numbers to. Very and the same thing where very fast, but also tall. When you're tall and fast, sometimes they don't accelerate super well, right? So he takes a little bit to get up to that ridiculous speed. But then, man, does he run by people? So I think he's would be a very exciting prospect, especially if he landed in Kansas City or in Green Bay. But he would work really well for a rebuilding team too because he's very raw.
Yeah, yeah, and when you draft him, should you draft him, I'm going to tell you right now, you're committed to Christian Watson. You're not selling on this guy after he has a low rookie year. You're going to sell low and get out. Like the only time you're selling is if he goes to the moon and you're selling high. Um, if you draft Christian Watson, he's on your team now for the next 3 years at least, while you wait to see what he's going to become. And I'm cool with that. I'm down to dedicate a roster spot or a taxi spot to Christian Watson or whatever it takes. Maybe even a starting spot, depending on what happens here with them. Hopefully a starting spot.
Absolutely. You have him sixth?
I have him 6, yeah, and he could jump into 5. If he lands on the Chiefs, he's jumping ahead of one of the big 5 guys. He is. I'm not sure who and what, but he will. If he lands on the Packers.
Oh,
maybe.
yeah.
Who knows?
He will definitely for me as well. So who else do you have in this in this next tier behind, or maybe I'll put it a different way. I think the consensus of the community has 2 more guys in this tier with Watson and Pickens behind the top 5.
Yeah.
And the next one be Jahan Dotson of Penn State. This guy's 5'10 and a half, runs a 4.43. Tiny, he's thin, he's explosive. The dream is Jalen Waddle, and the fear is KJ Hamler, who went to Penn State also.
Yeah.
And is also tiny. So what say you?
Yeah, I'm excited for Dotson. I think he's got a lot of upside. We'll see. It's going to be super landing spot dependent. When they're under 6 foot, it's always concerning. The speed's cool. Yeah, we'll see. I'll be perfectly comfortable spending a 2nd round pick on Dotson. Maybe I can get him at the 2.4 of my rookie draft. That'd be cool. I'd be down for that. He probably, he could be a late first pick in the NFL draft. He could be a 2nd pick. Probably does not drop out of the 4th. I imagine he definitely goes in the first 3 or 4 rounds. For sure.
Oh, I don't think he gets out of the second.
You think so?
Well,
okay.
I don't think he gets out of the 2nd. Certainly not the top 70 picks or something.
Yeah. So he'll have the capital, and
he's a day 2 pick.
Yeah. Like you got T. Higgins right at the top of your rookie drafts 2 years ago. Some people did, and that might be what Dotson is. I mean, obviously they're not physically comparable, but in terms of production relative to, cost.
You mean in terms of draft spot?
Yes. Right. Yeah. Exactly that.
At the top of the 2nd round of your rookie draft.
Yes.
Exactly.
Sorry. Yes. Slide in and out of those 2 comparisons.
No, absolutely. That's a guy people. Elijah Moore is another guy people were taking at the top of that 2nd round. He went, I think, 36th last year in the NFL draft, right at the top of that 2nd round, where Dotson might go. And the other guy who's sort of a consensus 2nd tier player is Skye Moore out of Western Michigan. Skye Moore is 5'9 and a half, 195. Ran a 4.41 at the combine. Undersized player from a small school, both fast and quick. Sharp routes, good hands. Some people are comping him to Stephon Diggs.
Seems aggressive.
It does. What are your thoughts on Skye Moore?
He's smaller, and his size scares me. So across this whole class, across all these 10, 12 guys we're talking about, a lot of size. There's a lot of size to go around. Big boys out here. He is by far the smallest at 5'9". Unless he gets a very good landing spot, I'm pretty scared of him. But with that in mind, I would be comfortable spending a late 2nd round pick, rookie pick on him wherever he lands, because he's got that kind of talent, and he could be a very productive slot receiver. I mean, we've seen guys like Jarvis Landry who are undersized, just have great hands and great talent with the ball, and so they get 100 targets, and that might be Skye Moore. It's hard to say. What do you think of him?
One thing I think I'm going to do is not push my favorite guys in this tier,
Hmm.
right? Like I do love some of these guys. Like I'm more comfortable with Dotson than Moore, to be frank. But like when I'm in
Yes.
the second round of these drafts, I'm just like I'm happy having these picks in the top 8, 7, 8 of the second round, where I think a lot of these wide receivers in this second tier that we're talking about, and even some of these guys in the third tier that we're about to talk about real quick, where they're going to go. And I feel like we're going to end up you just take whoever comes to you, and you're going to end up happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great way to put it. Like you're just gonna, if you get Skye Moore, you're 2.7, 2.8. Like, hey, don't worry too much about it. Just take him because he's good, right? Is that kind of what you're?
It's especially if you've got 10 leagues, right?
Yeah.
Right, like
Get a
instead
share.
of
Yeah.
instead of thinking I have to go, I like I like Jahan Dotson. I'm not in on Skye Moore, or I'm in on Alec Pierce. I'm not in on Skye Moore. I need to trade up to get to Alec. No, just if Alec Pierce is there, take him. If he's not, just take Skye Moore. And like you don't, a lot of these guys are going to hit, and it may not be the ones you like the best, right? So rank them, but don't overpay to get your guy in a class where there's a lot of good prospects.
Yeah, I think that's smart. There's just this whole big jumble of receivers. It's a big tier, man. So I would not be
Mm-hmm.
looking to move up and down it for them. I'll move down it maybe. If I can get
Yes.
some juice to move down the tier to drop from Pickens to Dotson
More.
and
Yes,
yeah, and I get
exactly.
something good for doing that. I
What am
get
I getting for that? Exactly.
a 23 second. Would you take that? I probably would.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah,
In a heartbeat.
exactly.
I mean, I might take the 301,
Yeah,
depending on how things are falling, right?
certainly. Hmm.
And then maybe it's a super flex and you go take one of these late second round quarterbacks, and like that's where we got Jalen Hurts, right? So
Yeah,
so there are things to do there. I mentioned him already.
yeah.
Let's look at some of these tier 3 guys. I mentioned Alec Pierce out of Cincinnati. We were talking size, 6'3", 210, 4.41 at the combine. His athletic profile, two of his top 5 comps were DJ Chark and Justin Jefferson.
Good comps. I mean,
Several other ones were less interesting players, right? So there's some of that there. There's a boom bust. But this is a guy who has good athletic traits and good production, who has played outside, has experience in the slot. I think he's going to sneak into the second round of the NFL draft, and I think he's going to move himself into tier 2 of the consensus, the league-wide, community-wide consensus rankings by the time draft day comes around. I actually have him, let's see, 6, 7, 8th, right after Watson,
yeah,
ahead of Jahan Dotson and ahead of Skye Moore.
yeah. I have Pearson there also, just inside the top 10. I think I have 9, and he could move up depending on capital. A lot of people, I was listening to some other analysts saying that this is the guy that made Desmond Ridder look like a good pick was Alec Pierce. He's the one who did all the work.
There you go.
And that might be true. Cincinnati Bearcat, love that. He's got the size, he's got the speed. I mean, he's basically Christian Watson light. I think it might be a fair comparison when you look at all
Mm-hmm.
the measurables. He's also a white guy. You don't see a lot of white receivers. I just want to throw that out there. He's not light skinned. He is just Caucasian, and that's interesting to me. It doesn't really mean anything, but it's just neat.
And then we got Justin Ross is another guy I'm very interested in here.
Yeah.
6'3.5", 205, out of Clemson. We have no speed on him. This is a guy who has not been able to stay healthy the last
Yeah.
year. But this is somebody who had. If you go look at 2022 mock drafts from 12 months ago, you will see his name in the top 10. And then he didn't have a healthy season, and he's coming out anyway. You might be able to draft him in the 3rd round of the NFL draft, even the 4th. But this is a sexy boom bust guy at the late 2nd round, maybe even early 3rd.
Hmm.
think about all those Clemson wide receivers who have done business in the NFL. And guys like T. Higgins and Mike Williams and Sammy Watkins, right? Like all these, they have a history of these big X receivers doing very well for you out there. So he's another one I'm interested in. Jalen Tolbert, Khalil Shakir, other guys who are less interesting to me personally, but are definitely thought of in this tier. Mechie out of Alabama as well. Do you have any other guys you want to speak to?
I mean, Mechie was a little bit like this is a guy who's hurt, but he's from Alabama. He's 5'11 and a half. He's got the pedigree, and he's might get some decent capital, and you could probably get him in the early third round of your rookie draft. Mechie, so keep an eye out for that name. Probably worth a dart at that point. But that closes out tier 3. Getting into tier 4, we got 4 guys we can touch on real quick. The first guy who jumps out is David Bell, who once upon a time was probably a high tier 2 guy, but he just had a terrible combine. But talk to me about David Bell.
I mean, he's big. He's slow. He ran a high 4.6s.
Yeah.
He didn't generate a lot of separation in college. He runs very precise routes. He has very good hands. He just might not have enough pop for the next level. We'll see. Or maybe he had a bad combine and he actually, has some better play speed than that, and maybe you'll get a really positive possession receiver out of him, right? Like I feel like those are the two outcomes here with David Bell.
Yeah.
But he's got some Michael Thomas traits to him in the way he boxes out on those like little slants and in routes. He's a very instinctive receiver when the ball's in the air. So like there's some stuff to like about David Bell.
Yeah, any other of the tier 4 or lower guys that you want to talk about? Anyone you like?
Yeah, Calvin Austin is the one of this group that is a game breaker that I would love to add in my rookie third rounds. I think somebody will take him in the high 4th round, very high on day 3 in the NFL draft. And
he's a small guy. Jeez, I didn't look at that yet. 5'9", 160.
Yeah. He is he's a home run guy, right? So this is
Deshaun Jackson.
Teeny tiny. Yeah. Yes. Yes, little guy from the slot. Gonna run a lot of downfield routes. Gonna break some ankles. Yes, Deshaun Jackson is a great comp. That's who he reminds one of. Had a great Senior Bowl week also, right? He and Christian Watson were the 2 best receivers out there for sure, and both moved up. And 7 inches is probably why he's down here in tier 4, and Christian Watson is knocking on the door of tier 1.
Yeah, that's fair. The size matters, guys. Size matters.
It really does.
I want to touch on you about that. Like, what's the size you're looking for? Is there like an overall size where like when he's below this number, you're just kind of out on the player, or if they're above this number, you're like, oh, I love that.
No, I do think the size dictates the role a little bit, and the guys who I'm going to be most comfortable with most of the time are the guys who are going to be getting the most targets, and those tend to be guys who are bigger outside contested catch guys who can get off press coverage, beat double teams, right? And that just usually is those 6'3", et cetera guys, right? But those are the guys who are your wide receiver 1, right? But if you're building one of these teams where you got 3 wide receivers and there's 3 flex spots, and you don't love rostering running backs because they decline in value, so you want a bunch of good wide receiver 2 and 3 guys rolling through all those flex spots. Those little guys who are plus complementary players, or little guys who hit enough home runs to score big points on average, those guys are fantastic. So I there's no one I'm going to rule out, but my very favorite guys are the guys who have the potential to be those alpha ones, and those are mostly 6'2" and bigger.
Right, yeah, you want that 6'2", 200-pound frame, and then the Ohio State guys, they're a little under that, so they are. It's scary for them a little bit that they might not see that alpha role. That doesn't mean they can't produce for fantasy.
No, it absolutely right. Yeah. So I think these guys I don't know that I don't know that we ever end up with any of these receivers being challenging Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in the next few years for the top two fantasy spots, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't see anybody like that in this class. So given that, yeah, you look at Drake London, you look at Watson Pickens, Trey Lon Burks. Um, those are the guys who have
bank manager and mother. But when she gets on her bike,
the physique to get 160, 170 targets, right? To me, and you know, but some of the other guys like Tyree Kill has usually made his living on less targets,
Yeah.
but he puts up the same points, right? So you can do it other ways.
Yeah, quarterback matters, coach matters. It's all about fit. It's all about fit with these receivers. Receivers are the most landing spot dependent, and we touched on that. Another thing is, like I said, it is the deepest position in the class. So like, if you're someone who has like 4+ top 20 picks in your rookie draft, top half of the second, late first, you're loaded on picks because you've been making moves, right? You've been listening to my strategies. You've been doing that. Like, don't hesitate to take like 3 receivers. Don't feel like I got to get one guy at every position. I know a lot of times that's a mentality people have. Like, oh, I need to take a running back in the first, a wide receiver, a tight end. Like, don't worry about that. Like, if you have 4 top 20 picks and you get 4 wide receivers, that's fine. You should feel good about that
100%.
because you have 4
Absolutely.
productive fantasy assets that should all be growing and all contribute to you. So, just want to dispel that myth real quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. Anything else, man? We're almost at an hour here. Any closing thoughts? Anything you want to leave our viewers with?
Yeah, I mean, I think the depth of this class, but also the lack of strength at the top, has me thinking that those high 2 picks are real nice, right? Like if I could get from 108 to 201 and get something that is that, I don't think I'm moving down too far in this group. Because I don't see we're getting 7 years of Devontae Adams out of any of these guys. Really, you could, but I do think you're going to see out of this group, guys who are going to be the wide receiver 8, 9, 12 on the year, many times, right? You're going to see a lot of wide receiver 1 seasons out of this class, and so just like. Get guys in this class. Get guys in this wide receiver class. It's a good wide receiver class. It's not a good quarterback class. It's an okay running back class. It's not a good tight end class.
It's awful at tight end.
It's a good wide receiver class. I don't know if it's an awful tight end class.
Yeah,
it's a good tight end class.
There's no one at the top of the tight end list that's like.
It's not a top heavy. Tight end class.
Like,
we'll talk about it in 2 weeks.
I'm sure we will. we'll tie it on to the end of our running back video. But
all right.
That's going to do it, guys. That's going to do it for the multiple first wide receiver breakdown. Thank you so much for staying with us. Under an hour. We appreciate it. Hit the sub button, baby. Hit the sub button and be a first round pick. Leave something in the comments. Leave your ranking of these receivers in the comments. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us what you loved. Love to hear from the community. Hit me up on Sleeper. Let's jump in a league together. It's all good. Have a wonderful night. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.